Victor was certainly the most powerful out of all the Hargreaves siblings, and so fans have been wondering since Season 1 why Reginald thought it was a good idea to drug him in the first place. And while some people might have missed it, the latest season, Season 3, actually explained exactly why he did it, even though it's still definitely problematic. If you guys want to know, stick with us as we dive into the reasoning behind Reginald's decision. Let's dive in. First things first, why Reginald drugged Victor. Season 3 of the Netflix hit show The Umbrella Academy explained a lot of things about what was going on with Reginald Hargreaves and the whole Hargreaves family, and while at the same time, it also raised a lot of new questions that we're dying to get answered in Season 4. One of the biggest things that became very clear was why Reginald drugged Victor in the first place. Let's go back to the first season for a moment. The Hargreaves were an odd family with superpowers, except for one. Victor was number 7, and also the only child who ended up never showing any powers. Except he did. In the last half of the season, viewers found out that he had superpowers all along. In fact, he probably had the strongest powers out of them all. Reginald had just been drugging him to suppress his powers this whole time after he thought that Victor was just becoming too powerful and too unpredictable. And yet, fans still wondered exactly why Reginald came to this conclusion. But Season 3 definitely cleared things up when fans were introduced to Harlan again. As we learned quickly, ever since the events of Season 2, Harlan faced a lot of difficulties learning how to control the powers he unwillingly got from Victor. Because of how uncontrollable and unpredictable they clearly turned out to be, he caused a lot of trouble for the Umbrella Academy without even actively trying to do so. Next up, a deeper look into Reginald's decision. Let's continue this comparison of Harlan's powers with that of Victor's. We're quickly reintroduced to the character in Season 3, and by the third episode, he even easily kills 2 of the Sparrows, Alfonso and Jamie, in one blast without breaking a single sweat. He and his mother Sissy had to constantly move around and change their names to prevent getting caught because he kept on messing up trying to hide them from others, something that would have been easier if he knew how to properly control them, or if he even could in the first place. Not to mention, we even learned that it was actually Harlan who accidentally killed all the mothers of the Umbrella Academy members, horribly messing up the timeline and bringing about the third apocalypse of the series. Keeping this in mind, it makes so much more sense why Reginald was so afraid of Victor's powers and thought the best approach was to suppress them. And while both Harlan and Victor still ended up causing the end of the world, either way, it seemed like Reginald understood exactly that and decided it was better to just keep Victor's powers from the world. Still, we can't deny how problematic that decision was. This brings us to our next point. Coming up, Harlan's outburst still doesn't justify drugging Victor. No matter how dangerous Victor and Harlan's powers obviously were, especially when they were emotional, it definitely still isn't Reginald's decision to drug Victor. If he had just taken the time to let Victor come into his own and learn how to get a hold of and control his own powers within the safe space of the Academy, things probably would have turned out so much better for the world. The apocalypse probably wouldn't have happened if Victor knew how to control himself after all. Not to mention, his overall physical and mental well-being would have been so much more improved comparatively too. Instead, Victor was emotionally abused by his siblings for years as they outcasted him for not having any powers. And the trauma of this abuse was exactly what triggered Victor to end up causing the apocalypse. Exactly what Reginald had feared all along. Clearly, this was not the right way to handle it. If Reginald had just tried to help Victor learn how to handle his powers in the first place, this probably wouldn't have happened. Moving on, let's talk about the top Umbrella Academy fan theories that just make sense. Umbrella Academy is one of the most popular shows on Netflix, and for good reason. It has a knack for keeping you on the edge of your seat and clicking the button to watch the next episode to see what happens. Unfortunately, Season 3 came to an end, but it left us with an insane cliffhanger that had us all wondering, what's next? Even more unfortunately, it's going to be a while before the next season comes out, considering that Season 3 just aired. So while we wait for all these questions to finally be answered, some fans have already tried to figure out the clues and answer them themselves. Here are the top fan theories out there that just make sense. First up, Ben and the Jennifer incident. One of the biggest mysteries in the Umbrella Academy that still hasn't been answered since Season 1 is, how did Ben die? The show was set long after the elusive number 6 passed away, and while he frequently appeared through memories and Claus's powers, the explanation for how he died in the first place still hasn't been given. Of course, considering that Season 4 is going to be the final season, we're hoping that we're going to finally get some answers, but that hasn't stopped fans from analyzing each and every clue the show drops. For example, the sketch of the Sparrow Academy's Ben in his room of a girl with the name Jennifer written underneath. We definitely know she's connected to his death somehow, but how exactly, we're not not fully sure. Also, that post-credit scene in the season finale shows Ben on a train in Korea. Considering that he doesn't have any scar on his face, a lot of fans thought that he was actually the Umbrella's Ben. But Steve Blackman quickly sets things straight by confirming it's actually the Sparrow's version aboard the train. But how did he get to Korea from the States that fast? And what is he doing there? Some fans think that since the timeline has been reset and Luther is alive once again, it's possible that Jennifer might be alive too, and the pair might be reuniting. Other fans also think that Ben's looking for his birth mother, who could very well be living in Korea, especially considering he's lost all his other Sparrow siblings. Next up, Allison's revenge. Now that the timeline has been reset, and even Luther is back alive again, one thing that fans noticed was that Sloane was ominously missing in the finale. A lot of fans also think that Allison might have something to do with it. In the 8th episode of the season, we saw Allison striking a deal with Sir Reginald to get everything she desired, which was an impossible family that combined her daughter in 2019 and her husband Chestnut, who lived in 1963, both of which weren't with her in season 3, as Claire ceased to exist after Harlan killed all of the Umbrella Academy mothers, leading to Claire never being born as Allison was never born. And, considering that they went forward in time, it also meant that Chestnut had long since passed away too. Losing two people she loved the most suddenly turned Allison into a really horrible person, and considering her past with Luther, she didn't really react well to his new relationship with Sloane either. So it's not that far off to think that separating the new lovebirds was part of her deal with Reggie. Finally, Reginald planned all the apocalypses. While we can't really say whether the Kugelblitz was intended or not, it's pretty clear that the flamingo red orb is really helpful towards Reginald's whole plan to reset the universe. But is it possible that this is actually his third attempt at trying to bring his wife back from the dead? Another very elusive character on the show that's been surrounded by a lot of mystery and theories has been none other than Reggie's late wife. A lot of fans actually believe that Reginald isolated and antagonized Victor from childhood on purpose because he wanted the apocalypse to happen in the first place, and he knew Victor had the powers to unleash it, and none of the control to stop it from happening. Then in season 2, Reggie was less than willing to help his children out, which makes a lot of fans believe even more that he knew his plans would work out just the way they did if the Hargreaves messed up just like they always did without his help. Not to mention, the third apocalypse probably would have happened when the Hotel Oblivion's button was pushed, regardless of the Kugelblitz. But the only way he could have brought 7 sacrificial lambs willingly to the slaughter was with the promise of saving the universe. And that's a wrap for this video. Which fan theory do you think might ring true next season? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.
Not anymore. Biscuit? How about you?